Well, if you're anything like me, you thought the final order for the NFL draft was set after the final regular season of the game, and we may have been wrong, and it could be a really good thing for the Denver Broncos. I'm going to tell you all about how the first 10 picks of the NFL draft, we could have a shakeup because of a possible NFL punishment, how that could help or hurt the Denver Broncos. If you're new to this channel, I'm Ben. I break down all things Denver sports. It helps me out a ton if you like and subscribe. So the news of the day is that the NFL is officially investigating the Philadelphia Eagles for the Saquon Barkley signing, saying that they were in contact with Saquon before the league year started, and what's important for us, the Atlanta Falcons for their signing of Kirk Cousins. So there are a lot of allegations coming out against that. Let's take a look at those and how that could impact the Denver Broncos. So we remember in Kirk's introductory press conference, he was wearing a Kohl's suit and looking super handsome. And he alluded to the fact that he was actually talking to Atlanta Falcons training staff before the official open of free agency, which is a violation of tampering, which typically the team that does the tampering is punished pretty severely. And I'm going to show you some times where teams have been punished severely and what are the two different outcomes we could see of this, but we will probably see an outcome from this before the draft. So just looking famously, because our coach was involved in this, the last big tampering case with a team talking to a player before they were supposed to was Sean Payton and Tom Brady had agreed to, while Tom Brady was a current New England Patriot and Sean Payton was a current New Orleans Saints coach, they agreed to team up and get together and go play in Miami. And that was totally against the rules. And so the Falcons were fined heavily. They lost a first-round draft pick in that draft, and then they lost this year's third-round draft pick. So that is a massive blow to them. None of those draft picks went to the Patriots and to the Saints. Those were just taken from the Dolphins. I think that's important. Hang on to that piece of information. The most recent example, but it was not as heavy of a fine, is that the Eagles and Cardinals had a problem where beforehand, Arizona was talking to the defensive coordinator of the Eagles and then stole him. And so the way that the punishment worked out is that they just swapped third-round draft picks. So Mike Florio today came out and said, well, hey, if the real beef here is between the Vikings being upset that you talked to Kirk Cousins before you were supposed to, just swap first-round draft picks. The Vikings pick at 11, the Falcons pick at 8. So let's just give the Vikings the 8th pick, and the Falcons will get the 11th pick, and we'll call it even. Here's why I don't think that would happen, is that in the case of the Eagles, or in the case of the Cardinals and the Eagles, the only group that were harmed and the only group involved were those two. Whereas now you see the Falcons, by talking to Kirk Cousins before they were supposed to, they wronged more than just the Vikings. They wronged every team who may want to try to get Kirk Cousins to sign with them. So we heard rumors that the Steelers might want him. We heard the Raiders might want him. We heard Seattle might want him. We even saw rumors in Denver that even with all of Russell Wilson's dead cap money, the Denver Broncos might want in on Kirk Cousins. And so I do not think the NFL will punish them by just having them swap picks, because there was more than just one team harmed in this. So I think the most likely scenario, even though Mike Florio suggested that, and when he suggested it, I watched the full clip, he just kind of mentioned it off the top of his head. He was kind of spitballing it. And so I don't think that by any means is actual reporting. He was just suggesting that as one possible outcome. So we see a ton of articles come out. This one came out, said that if all that happened was the Vikings got to move up to 8 without trading, that could be a disaster for the Denver Broncos, because then the Vikings are at 8. It would cost them a lot less to move up and try to go get JJ at number 4. They only have to trade up 4 spots to go get JJ McCarthy if they want him, or they could get all the way up to getting Drake May for what they probably would have had to give up to give JJ. So that would be worst case scenario for the Denver Broncos. If the Vikings and the Falcons just switch spots, that would be the worst case scenario, because then still the Falcons would have that pick at 11. Truly, all the mock drafts and all the rumors have the Falcons wanting one of those top cornerbacks who's probably still going to be on the board at 8 and at 11. But for the Vikings, that would be massive for them. But I truly believe more than one team was harmed in this. And so I don't just see a simple pick swap with those. So there's this cool article here all about the different times that we have had teams penalized for tampering and what has happened. So the Detroit Lions tried to sign a safety with the Chiefs, so they lost a pick and then had to swap picks as well with the Chiefs. And then the 49ers were trying to get Lance Briggs from the Chicago Bears, and so the 49ers lost a pick and had to swap. But again, as I said, a ton of teams were hurt by this alleged tampering. And so if that's what the NFL decides, then I do think that what would happen is the best hope would be, man, if all of a sudden you just took that 8th pick out of there and now the Broncos, instead of sitting at 12, they're now at 11. So I think that would play out incredibly well for us. So imagine this, that the Denver Broncos now have the 11th pick in the draft, and all of those top 4 quarterbacks go off the board. You're now getting a top 7 talent by picking at 11, and that's really exciting. I think Brock Bowers will definitely fall to you. You could probably get an edge rusher there. You could probably get a franchise-defining tackle. So I think the best case for the Denver Broncos is that the Falcons lose their 8th pick. Maybe if you want to kind of compensate the Vikings, you could give them one of the Falcons' like 3rd picks, the 3rd round draft pick, give that to the Vikings or something, because they were if you're filing a grievance, they were, I guess they were punished more. They were hurt more by the tampering, but the entire league was hurt by this tampering, and that's why I think that could be a good thing for the Broncos. Next thing I just wanted to go over quick here is that you have some insider sources for the Minnesota Vikings. Totally different subject here, but definitely interesting for the Broncos. And his name's Paul Allen, and he's essentially like he's like the Dave Logan of Minnesota. And you remember George Payton cut his teeth in the league in Minnesota and is very good friends here. And according to one report that if Sean Payton loves J.J. McCarthy enough that he would give up multiple picks and Patrick Surtain to move up and get J.J. McCarthy. So I'm very curious what all y'all Broncos fans think about that. How would you feel about the Denver Broncos trading Patrick Surtain, this year's first and next year's first, if Sean Payton is truly in love with J.J. McCarthy? At this point in time, that is definitely not what I would do. I haven't seen enough of J.J. McCarthy that I think he's worth Pat Surtain, who was a top 10 pick, next year's first round draft pick. That's a lot to go and get the 4th best quarterback in this draft. But my stance on this is, if Sean Payton knows that he can get the guy that he loves, and if he is sure that that is not going to be a bust and that he's not going to regret that, I think it is worth it to get a franchise quarterback here in Denver. Again, I'm trusting Sean Payton to make the right decision on here, but I'm very curious what all of y'all think. Also, weigh in, what do you think the punishment from the NFL is going to be for the Atlanta Falcons in the tampering of Kirk Cousins? Do you think that will end up benefiting us because the Falcons are just going to lose the 8th pick? Or do you think that'll end up hurting us because the Falcons will swap with the Minnesota Vikings? And truly, do not read too much into that Mike Florio report, because he was just offhand, kind of spitballing different solutions and things that he thought could make that an okay situation. So very excited. Got big plans on what we're going to do here for the NFL draft in just a couple of days. And until then, Broncos country, let's giddy up. Man, I thought raising the desk would help.